pod. It's moving around then. Right folks, welcome back to another video. It's a good day today. One, because it's sunny, and two, because I'm sitting in a brand new RS3 8Y launch edition, and to the right of me we've got a Mark 8 Golf R. So yes, we are doing a comparison video. We'll take them on some country roads, get you some back-to-back driving impressions. We'll do a walk around first, but before we get to that, enjoy a little montage and then we'll get started. Now I know some people are going to be saying, hold on, the rival to a Mark 8 Golf R is an S3. Now I feel like the S3 in the 8Y generation has kind of lost its way, because this thing has stuff like drift mode and the Magna Rear diff, which this also shares. But yeah, I think what we'll do, we'll begin with this first because there's a lot to talk about here. Now starting around the front, as mentioned, this thing has got matrix LED headlights, so you get the little RS3 illumination when you turn them on. They are standard on the launch edition. Very aggressive black fascia here. You've also got these slats which are reminiscent of the old Sport Quattro. Now on the 8Y, both the Saloon and the Sportback, as far as I know, share the same front end. The 8V was different because the Saloon had a sort of normal sort of front arch, whereas the Sportback was very pumped up. We've got this little feature vent here as well. Basically the launch edition comes with most extras that you'd want, and you can also get red brake calipers on it, which you can't on any of the other configurations. Very limited here in the UK. We've got two 6.530s on the front, and at the rear we've got two 4.535s. It's also finished in Camorra grey, which is now the closest thing you can get to Nardo as a standard colour. Nardo's gone back to being a Audi exclusive colour as far as I know. Black mirrors, panoramic roof, standard on a launch edition, and also a Vorsprung. You can't get in any other configuration or spec it as one. RS Sports exhaust, aggressive diffuser. Yeah, this is almost as if the whole side of the car is swollen. So you've got black leather with this honeycomb style effect, typical RS Audi. Same in the rear as well. We've also got a rear armrest, which is cool. I did kind of cover a lot of this in that previous 8Y kind of first drive video, so we'll try and gloss over the stuff that's the same. Bang & Olufsen. Now, like many others have said, whilst this cabin is very nice in here, there isn't much in the way of like a RS touch in here apart from the seats. We have to deal with this round steering wheel now because the launch editions come with the driver assistance package, and it's also same with the Vorsprung as well. If you've got a carbon edition, I'm pretty sure you can get the flat bottom, and the normal standard edition that I drove before had a flat bottom steering wheel. It's not too much of a big deal, but it would have been nice if you could at least spec it with Alcantara. That's the other issue, we can't get the RS design packs now in the UK. That was kind of something that was an issue on the later 8Vs as well, the Sport edition. So down here, as I pointed out previously, the cup holders are a bit, yeah, it feels like they just spent all their money here on the seats, but they sort of just left this bit out. But you'll see in a second with the Mark 8, that's kind of the same theme with that. But I am glad that Audi kept a ton of physical buttons here. Everything you need is accessible. Paddle shifters are new as well. I suppose they have given us a little RS badge there to make us happy, and we have got an RS button. But yeah, let's turn this thing on. Let's just move this a bit forward slightly so we can get out the way of that glare. Yeah, shout out to that tree over there doing the job, pressing into park. So as you can see straight away, very nice reverse cam there, big upgrade from the old generation. We also have a head-up display. Doesn't seem to be illuminated right now, but maybe there's a setting for it to be switched on. Going into car over here, that's of course the drift mode, thanks to the rear diff, but Audi is always discreet about these things. Different latch now, you press it to the left, and there we go. Hydraulic bonnet strut, the reason I mentioned that. Yeah, so we've got a DNWC engine, 400 PS, and we've also got 500 Nm of torque. It's essentially very similar to the one I had in my old car, so not really much to note. The torque comes in a bit earlier. On the road it does feel very quick, and is noticeably quicker than the old one mid-range, and these brakes are new as well. Right, so the Mark 8 Golf R, nice to revisit this thing. I haven't driven it since the review, and I did a review on this when I first bought the Mark 7 GTI, so that gives you an idea of how long it's been. This thing has a performance pack and all the fancy extras, even has a Krapovich exhaust. This exhaust alone is around £3,000, so very highly spec'd car. And that nicely brings us on to the whole kind of price topic. A lot of people have been complaining about the 8Y being like £70,000-80,000. I don't know what's going on there. The list price of these RS3s are nowhere near that. This thing being a launch edition, the list price was £56,900. So in my opinion, very reasonable in a car of today's era with that much performance and those looks. This car spec'd up was just over £50,000, so you've got a 6 or 7 grand difference. And in this, we've got a whole extra cylinder. Now obviously those cars are selling above list, but they're nowhere near £80,000 like I've seen some people saying. But yeah, the Mark 8, there we go. This car's done 15,000 miles now, so properly running. My friend definitely does enjoy his cars. He had the Mark 7 Golf R, which I reviewed at the start of the channel, so yeah, he continues the theme. Black leather interior, these are an optional extra. They're heated and cooled. Very futuristic cabin. Obviously Volkswagen have taken a totally different approach to the 8Y, and they've tried to go almost 2-3 generations ahead rather than evolving it slightly. He has also changed his tyres to Pilot Sport 4S's. The car comes from factory with Goodyear Eagle F1 Super Sports. Obviously bigger brakes compared to the Mark 7, new caliper design. I personally do quite like the way the Mark 8 looks, especially when it's spec'd this way. Yes, granted it does cost quite a lot of money, but yeah, when they depreciate in a few years time, it'd be nice to pick one up. Carbon effect kind of trim, just like the other car over there. Now there are a few similarities here. I've just noticed this area down here, apologies about the dirt, as I said, it is actively used. It's just as plasticky as the 8Y. Nice pulsating start button. Comfort, Sport, Race. Now in Race we've got the drift mode. Volkswagen doesn't mind, they just call it what it is. And we've got Nürburgring mode, which was very cool when I last drove it. It's a very aggressive car when it's in this mode, but it's still also very supple. It's a lovely way they've tuned it. And yeah, the dash just goes all green. This is going to be a very Mark 8 shot here, so look at this. Off to the left. Oh, there we go. Right, let me just turn it off because that EA AAA makes a fair bit of a racket. Nothing new there. Okay, so deja vu. This is the Gen 4 variant of the EA AAA though. Engine oil caps in a different location. We'll get this kind of cushion for an engine cover that they now give us off. Right, so this thing's putting out around 320 PS, around 80 PS down on the RS3. I am by no means comparing this thing to the 5-cylinder engine though. This is more a comparison of just how both cars drive back to back, and then potentially being more than just a combination of their figures. But yeah, we have got an all new turbocharger from Continental. I am quite looking forward to seeing the tuning scene on this thing once they're all opened up. A few people in Germany have tuned these cars, but on the grand kind of tuning scene, let's say, people haven't really got any mapped Golf Rs out there. Most of the people are running like aftermarket kind of tuning boxes. Interestingly with this though, compared to the other EA AAAs, we've got a bunch of Audi stickers everywhere. One there, it says 06K. Makes sense because the 5-cylinder is 07K, so there's been a 4-part, it's one below. Right, so I think that pretty much covers the details on both of these cars. I have done a complete review on this exact Mark 8 if you want to know more about it, and I've also done an 8Y kind of first drive. What I'll do now, I'll get a start on both, get some revs in briefly, and then yeah, we'll hit up some country roads. So we'll begin with the RS3. I'm on a lay-by right now, but it's good to drive one of these on some familiar roads. For the purposes of this test, we'll leave this in RS Performance mode, and the Golf R we will leave in Nürburgring mode, so they're both in their kind of max attack settings. Might as well boot it. Yeah, these 8Ys are quite fast, more so than their figures suggest. We've got this RS monitor which tells us whether stuff has overheated. Thankfully nothing has. Still a 5-pot. I mean, they're chilly. This is already giving me throwbacks to when I drove the other one. There's something about the way the wheel turns on an 8Y. It's so different to an 8V. It's like the car just pivots around you. It's like the car's on caffeine. I don't know, that's the best way for me to describe one of these. It's like you need to be awake. You don't really need to be awake to drive the old one. You just sat there and just planted it. Ah, there we go. one thing I will say about this, because it is so agile at the front end, believe me, I'm not exaggerating, like it's insane. It's hard to get used to if you just hop into it, especially if you're used to the older cars. You almost have to take it easy a bit because you kind of need to learn the car's limits. I'm sure they're very high on this. Yeah, interesting one. Right, so there's no one behind me and no one coming towards me for now. Let's do a launch. Launch active. My God. What was that? I don't understand how he just did that. Fair play, Audi. Especially after they mocked up the launch on the 2019 RS3 after the Daza engine. Daza, like the one I've got now, launches great. But then on the Sportback that I had, the OPF one, it's such a soft launch. So they finally went back to the drawing board and sorted it out. This thing's better than both of those cars. Whoa, bit of push there. That was a bit of a strange sensation. Maybe there's something on the road. Yeah. Nice shove up there. DQ500 feels like a DQ500. They have unfortunately got rid of my rev catching thing. You know that thing I always do, like, it doesn't do it. I'll try again. Nah. Even banging to limiter, it won't do any fancy noises or anything like that. Okay, there it's getting a bit bumpy. Yeah, sometimes over these dips you can feel like it's doing this interesting kind of float. Okay, didn't notice that earlier. The only thing I do miss from the AV is that lovely center speedo which used to fly into like the green and the yellow and the red. I think it does do something of the sort with this, but it just comes towards you. I don't know, maybe some people like pretending they're in a jet aircraft. But yeah, it's a fantastic car. I think I've said what I need to say about the 8Y with this and the other video. I think what we need to do now is head over to the Mark 8 Golf R, because I think that's where you'll get a real insight into this thing. Simply by giving it something to compare to. Right, so in the Mark 8 Golf R, first thing I'm going to do, press the R button, put it into special, which is a Nürburgring mode. It's part of race, which this has the performance pack. If you press I here, it gives you a little paragraph for you to read. In this driving profile, the entire vehicle is set up for optimum performance on the Nordschleife section of the Nürburgring. It goes without saying you can use this profile outside the Nordschleife too. However, the race driving profile is better suited to racetracks. So what they mean is, if you want a smooth racetrack, use race mode. If you're on a bumpy back road, you can use Nürburgring, because obviously the Nürburgring's not exactly smooth, is it? Not ever been, but that's apparently the case. I've done enough laps of Forza to know. Now, one thing I will say straight off the bat, and I don't know if you guys agree with me on this cabin just feels a lot more racy-fied than the RS3. Obviously, I'm comparing it to a UK spec 8Y where we don't get stuff like the RS design pack. But everything from the flat bottom steering wheel to with this little blue detailing, these paddles being quite big, the seats also feel a lot more secure. So yeah, obviously there's a bunch of gimmicks here with the amount of settings you're going to go to just to put it to traction sport, but it definitely feels futuristic. Squirmed around then. You get a little kick as well at the upshift if you ring it out to redline, of course. It feels like they've engineered some more character into the box. With the older Golf R, it was a lot smoother. Pre-facelift being the DQ250 and facelift being the DQ381. To get that aggression, you always had to go to the RS3 box, the DQ500. But unfortunately in the 8Y, they've got rid of a lot of that, like the way you can't like catch the revs and get that anti-lag noise, and yeah, it feels a lot more smoother. Now, of course, the RS3 has about 80 odd horsepower on this thing. Well, if you look at numbers on paper. But when you actually drive one of these Mark 8 Rs on the road, they don't actually feel like they're 320 PS. It's the way the gear ratios are and just how aggressive the whole thing is. The only difference this car has to OE spec is it's on Pilot Sport Voices. We have got the same rear diff unit as the RS3 as well. The front end feels a bit more It's not far off, you know. Yeah, it doesn't have the extended shove. Let it go to red, let it flash red. This box is quicker than the RS3 one. Never thought that day would come. I'd say the DQ500 slower. Must be a revised version of the 381 in this. It is a 7-speed. Love the way it just shuffles power around. You can feel it sending power to the outside rear wheel at times. It's a different sensation to before, which is very cool. It's moving around then. You can enter corners like a knob. The bottom line is, you guys know, if you've been watching my channel for a number of years, I'm the biggest fast-cylinder fanboy there is. But I'll be brutally honest, you'll have just as much fun in this thing on a back road. Damping's amazing. Less of a kind of floatiness after the undulations as well compared to the RS3. That was doing some weird kind of like, yeah. Oh, this thing's awesome. Mate, what a tool this is. Oh, you can bang into the limiter as well. It gives you a little thud. Now I personally think if you had both this and the AY parked next to each other and you hadn't driven either car or any kind of four-wheel drive MQB, you'd be able to drive this quicker on a back road straight away. You need a bit more time to adjust to the way the RS3 turns. Whereas this feels, I don't know, it's like the car's just like hugging you. It's so nice. Sits on the corner lovely. I can't really remember how it was like on the F1 Super Sports, which is the factory tyre. Well, this particular car came with it. I have seen some other cars with different tyres. You never really know. Yeah, every time you ask for the gear, it gives you it. I tell you what, all they need to do is add a few more convenient buttons in this interior and it'll do the job. Because one thing I like about it is it feels new. It feels like you're in a new experience. That doesn't really get old. And when it does get old eventually, you can just tune it. Because I'm sure by the time it gets old, the ECU will be unlocked. But yeah folks, I think what we'll do, that's enough hooning on these back roads. We'll head back home now and I'll do a little conclusion on my thoughts today of driving both of these cars back to back. Now usually at this point with comparison videos, a person normally tells you what you should or you shouldn't buy. I'm not going to do that in this case because I feel like anyone who wants to buy an RS3 is going to buy an RS3. I can attest to that. As you can see, fast-cylinder fanboy full flow. There's just something about that engine, whether it's an early RS3 or the latest 8Y generation. If you want one, you want one. Now that doesn't make this video pointless because it's still an experiment for me. I wanted to see what both of these cars are like on the same bit of road. Because if you remember with the Mark 7 R generation and the early RS3 8V, the pre-facelift, there was always so many different videos and comparisons showing how the Mark 7 R was so much better to drive, and it was, I can confirm that. So it's nice to see how Audi's come along so much. In fact, now I feel like the RS3 is more of the aggressive machine on a back road. Now there's also the whole S3 topic. The Golf R is a sibling car to that. It shares the same engine. But I feel like with this generation, with the Mark 8s, have left that so much tech on the S3 that it's kind of just there. I mean, it's a great car to drive. I've driven one, but nah. The Mark 8 R is definitely still a step above. It still was kind of with the older one, but now there's a significant difference in tech. And then lastly, there's also the topic of pricing. There's no longer a hero car anymore. With the Mark 7, there was always cheap deals, and you could get into a Mark 7 R very cheap compared to an RS3. The step up was huge. Now you've got to have minimum 45 to 50k to have a proper Mark 8 R. That's a lot of money. So yeah, if it was my money, I would probably just, if I was buying both cars brand new, yeah, I wouldn't bother with a Mark 8. I'd wait for that to depreciate. Because the RS3, as I said, the real list price of it is in the 50s. So yeah, there's a bunch of ways you could look at the topic. But either way, they're both fantastic cars. And ultimately, you just buy what you prefer. I'm not one to tell you what you should or you shouldn't buy. But I know a lot of people tune into this channel to get my thoughts. Either way, if you enjoyed those thoughts, make sure you drop a like on it, subscribe for a lot more content to come. Also, just before we go, I just want to give a massive shout out to the owners of both of these respective cars. They're both friends of mine. The MK8 R you've seen before. He's also got his own YouTube channel now, which I'll put a link to down below if you want to check it out. And also the RS3 has got an awesome restaurant down here in Birmingham. I'll put a link to their Instagram down below. He is also considering selling that car as well, so if you're interested, just drop him a message. But yeah folks, I'll see you in the next one in a few days time, and yeah, take care.